MIDDLEKAUFF! Going live on a Monday, YouTube only, although some of this might end up on the podcast feed. We'll experiment a little bit with that. What's up, YouTube? Hello, everybody.
YouTube.
Hit that like button if you're hanging here. We appreciate that. Subscribe to the channel. We appreciate that. Thank you very much for your love and support or your hate. Hate. Whichever one we appreciate. This is a Monday free agency is underway.
Hot stove.
Matt Olson on his way to the Braves. Josh Donaldson for Gio Urshela and Gary Sanchez to the Yankees. Did you see he had to bury the hatchet with Garrett Cole today?
Well, I didn't see that they buried the hatchet, but I saw it go viral about what he said. Well, I mean, I kind of remember it when it happened, but it was like Donaldson was the most outspoken guy about the spider tack, and then he got asked about the spider tack, and Garrett Cole like kind of went, Rafael Palmeiro was, didn't know what to say, was caught red-handed.
Yeah. They had a productive meeting, according to Donaldson or Garrett Cole today.
The line of the day, though, came from Bob Melvin when they asked him about Fernando Tatis's injury.
Yeah.
And he said, what about, did he hurt it on an ATV accident? And Bob Melvin responded, which one? So he got multiple off-season accidents.
How about, speaking of accidents, Pete Alonso. How can you be driving a Ford F980 Super Duty and that thing got flipped? Somebody must have been flying. Somebody hit him, T-boned him, stop sign.
I watched him talk. He looked pretty rattled. And I've been in a crash in my Philly days. I was in the passenger seat, but one of those like everyone stops on the freeway and like three guys run into each other. It rattles you for like 24 hours, and you could feel it on his face. He said they just drove right through the green light. He was going through a green light. They went through a red light and hit him, I think, at a very, very high speed. His wife was behind him in the car.
Ooh, like
so
she
ran out,
helped
him
car.
Out. Well, they were taking two cars to spring training, and he had a bunch of shit in there. She had a bunch of shit in there. Yeah, he said his wife fucking, flipped the switch and just called the police as she's helping him out, and he said she was a trooper.
Wow, I saw he had to come through the windshield.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It was like a F-750. It was enormous and lifted.
Massive. Lifted. It looked like it was like a, yeah, anyway. All right, John, first things first. Mitchell Trubisky is a Pittsburgh Steeler. And so that takes one of the potential Jimmy Garoppolo destinations off the table for the 49ers as we sit here on Monday afternoon.
Yeah, I wouldn't say shocking because we knew old Mitchell was going to sign somewhere. I read before we hopped on that his decision ultimately came. Remember, we had thought Mitchell would end up with the Giants with Brian Daboll. But I think ultimately he realized the Steelers a better chance to start. They did draft once upon a time Daniel Jones 6 overall, and I think the owner's going to want to see him play. He's going to be the starting quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I don't think Mitchell's any good. I would clearly much rather have, if Jimmy's able to throw, Jimmy Garoppolo as my quarterback over Mitchell Trubisky. But it's not that simple in a vacuum. I haven't seen the money on Mitchell Trubisky, but it can't be very much, one. And two, they didn't have to give up any assets in terms of draft capital to acquire him. So it's an easier move. Now they're getting, to me, a lesser player, and if Mitch Trubisky starts 17 games for the Steelers, I think they're going to struggle to win 9 games. They might have enough talent just to be really competitive, in that 8 kind of range. But I also think this kind of shows that feels like they'll draft a quarterback, maybe like a Malik Willis, take a swing with Mitch. But, ultimately they avoid giving any draft compensation to get Jimmy, especially if it's, as a wise man said, that there's a second-round pick on the table. You're not going to bid for that.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. I mean, the other thing is, the money is the whole story here.
It is, but whether he costs, let's say, $9 million or $12 million, Mr. Trubisky then is your starting quarterback. Regardless what it costs, he's your starting quarterback. They're going to try to make the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, if he costs $4 million or $5 million, then he's your starting quarterback. But if something else falls in your lap, it allows you to do that something else, right? And as we saw last year with the Bears, Andy Dalton was their starting quarterback until they drafted a quarterback, and he wasn't their starting quarterback, but he kind of was, but it was weird. So,
but Justin Fields is a much farther along, let's say, than Malik Willis if they draft him, right?
yeah, and Fields kind of fell in their lap, right? And they still forced the Andy Dalton thing. Yeah. What I was thinking was more in the lines of if it's $4 million for Mitchell Trubisky and then Jimmy Garoppolo somehow. Let's say you liked Jimmy more, and I'm not saying you necessarily would have to like Jimmy more, even though I agree Jimmy is the better quarterback. What would stop you from maybe doing something like that? That's where I think the money matters on Mitchell.
That's fair. Could you? Yeah, you're saying could you get Jimmy for 15 and a bunch of incentives and Mitch, and those are your two quarterbacks?
That's and Jimmy's been hurt, but you got Trubisky, and your quarterback room costs you $21 million or something like that. That's where I think the Trubisky money matters. Now, I still think the door is probably still closed for the Steelers on Garoppolo, but if he were to get cut, maybe it's a different animal. Now, if you're Jimmy, would you go there if you were cut over, say, going to Indy, where you're definitely the starting quarterback? No, I wouldn't go there if I were cut. Right? We still don't Carolina, New Orleans. The Deshaun thing has to play itself out. If New Orleans, if you're Garoppolo, Carolina's probably not overly attractive, but New Orleans might be pretty attractive to you. So him becoming a free agent, why would he pick Pittsburgh if he were a free agent if Trubisky's there already? But that's anyway. That was my point. It's like the money really matters to me.
I do think it's pretty telling that as of doing this, we don't have the Mitchell money. To me, that's very telling because agents want out all the fake money. There might be no fake money. It just might be 1 year, $5 million.
Yeah.
You don't brag about that, right? You would have bragged, like to me immediately, if he got 1 year, $16 million, it would have already been out. It ain't out. So I think they got him on the cheap, which you're right. I mean, it just continues to leave options open because if you view Mitch Trubisky as a backup, well, if you get Jimmy for 12, if he's cut, because you're not trading for him now. Again, like you couldn't with the $27
Not for the money. Not unless he were to rework his contract. But again, why would he rework his contract to come to the Steelers where Mitchell Trubisky's sitting? So
yeah. But it was a good spot in terms of like if you are going to be a starting quarterback, the Steelers are a very competitive team, right?
It was a great spot for Jimmy. It was probably one of the top 2 spots for Garoppolo.
That in Indy?
I think so, right?
I would put the Saints right there, too. I mean, they have a bunch of good offensive players. They have a really good defense.
Great home field advantage.
I think their main question is just that this unknown. I mean, he's known. We saw him coach, but it's like, do you want to give Dennis Allen a little bit of a reprieve? Lack of judgment for those couple years with the Raiders. They were a pretty big joke talent-wise. I mean, I want those teams were not exactly super talented. It's hard to just say he'll suck forever, but he was not good.
Yeah, he might. But we can give him a open-minded would be the best way I'd put it. Like I'm not expecting him to show the world what he's made of and bring revenge upon the Raiders. But I'm sure we'll be open-minded about it. And maybe they actually have a little more stability in their skill guys than the Steelers do. As crazy as that is to say, because Juju and Claypool, it's weird with both. I mean, Juju might be gone. We already thought that once. Now Kamara's got a legal issue perhaps to deal with, but. Could be a little more stable from that
Michael
standpoint.
Thomas never showed up.
But I just the bottom line, I think we're coming up with a few theories here and there. Ultimately, I think the headline is that this hurts Mitchell Trubisky to the Steelers hurts the 49ers leverage in a Jimmy Garoppolo trade. Like that is the big headline. And some of what we've said to this point is part of a separate part of that conversation, but that's the bottom line. It hurts their leverage with the Indianapolis Colts and any other Jimmy Garoppolo potential destination. And 2 of the other destinations, New Orleans and Carolina, have been reported as the headline places for Deshaun. So neither one of them, if you could get Deshaun, is going to rush into Jimmy until they know they're not getting Deshaun.
I think if you're the Niners, and I think Schefter, Rap Sheet, reported this morning that he's going to meet with them in the next day, both teams. I don't know if that's
Deshaun's going to meet with those two.
Yeah, if he's going to fly around. I think you're rooting for him to go to Carolina.
Yeah.
Because then the Saints get pretty desperate in the sense of, like the Steelers, the Saints are going to try to make the playoffs this year. Obviously, the Panthers would too, but I can't see them going after Jimmy. To me, the Saints make a lot of sense for Jimmy Garoppolo. So I think you're rooting for Deshaun Watson to go to Carolina. And honestly, geographically, it might make the most sense. We talked about it yesterday on the pod, right? He's from that area. Clemson's not far away. I heard Coward say it's just natural ACC country. It's just very, not that the Saints, that's also Southern football country, but it's SEC. It's a little different. I would say that Carolina, again, I would be leery if I was him both places. I think you got major question marks, right? This in both coaching situations, especially Carolina. But at least the owner has a lot of money. And I bet the owner will tell him it's different because baseball doesn't have a salary cap, but they have that tax. You see the Mets owner was like, I don't give a shit about the tax. I think Tepper will talk like that to guys like Deshaun Watson. Like, I will do whatever it takes to get us sweet players. I have unlimited cash and I will go Kroenke where it feels like I think the reason it feels like they have no salary cap because they're constantly signing contracts and just moving money down, but he doesn't mind continue to just give cash out. And a lot of owners, you can tell, are a little like the Bengals have done it the last couple years, but they're kind of picking their spots. And even this year, they let some guys walk to go to the Jags. Look who kind of is the mark right now. It would be the Jags because I think the owner has a bunch of money and he's desperate to win. So it's when you can get these guys that are really rich and are desperate to win, I think you root for Deshaun to go there, and then it gives Jimmy the Indy. Because what the fuck's Indy going to do? Indy ain't trying to not win.
Yeah, I mean, I think back to I want to go back to Deshaun just for a second, which is, I think there would probably be, if you're in the position that Deshaun's in right now, there's probably a comfort level that comes with being able to sit across from the owner and the owner saying to you, we've got your back, which is, I'm sure, what David Tepper would say to him because David Tepper's trying to win him over. The Saints are a little more of a traditionally structured NFL team, right? He's not sitting down with the owner of the Saints, or maybe he is, but it's not like Tepper, where what Tepper does, Tepper gets. What Tepper wants, Tepper gets.
Yeah.
And Tepper, I would imagine, will be very forceful in that meeting to say to him, hey, man, you're our guy. We are going to protect. In this building, there will be no doubt about who's on your side, who believes in you, all that kind of stuff. The Deshaun story that he created with the lawsuits that are still probably coming is one thing. Don't forget, before that story, there was just the story of him wanting to get out of Houston because him and Cal McNair don't get along, right? Yeah. Him and the whole organization didn't get along. So that's part of to me, the backdrop of what's going on in Deshaun's head. And I think you're right. Now the Steelers are out. If Deshaun goes to the Saints, the Panthers are not a Garoppolo destination. So, but here's the problem is when is that meeting happening? Because the Steelers are already off the table.
24 hours. So hopefully tomorrow.
Hopefully Tuesday. It needs to happen quickly.
There is Zoom and Google Meets. But, I
That's
think
true.
This is the type situation where I give General Patton some credit. When they hired Nathaniel Hackett or were going through the process, he's like, we decided to fly to every candidate. He's like, this is too big of a decision for Zoom meetings. I was like, I kind of like that. I would imagine if you're sitting down with Deshaun Watson, it's a double whammy. The amount of trade compensation and what he has hanging over his head. Ultimately, the Broncos, when they traded for Russell Wilson, it's pretty well established what you're dealing with. I don't know if you had to talk to him man-to-man if he was signed off on your team. Right? But I'd say Deshaun Watson falls under the category a little bit. It happened when I was in the NFL, and it continues to happen. You get these 30 visits during the draft, and most of the guys that you want to talk to, you talk to briefly at the combine. But I would say your top guys that have some question marks off the field, and it doesn't even have to be like a rest or anything. It just be like, we're just a little uneasy with the write-up we have on this guy off the field. You fly that guy to your building. So you just get to, and when I was in Philly, whenever we'd fly the red flag guy to the building, Jeffrey Lurie met with him. If it was just you're meeting with Mike McGlinchey, you don't need to. But when you had whoever your red flag guys are, and there is I would imagine Kayvon Thibodeau, and again, I'm not saying he's some major red flag, but there are questions on him. I bet John Mara talks to him, right? I bet,
especially your top 10 pick, right? Your first round pick,
and that's another thing. Yeah, owners like talking to top 10 picks.
Mr. Jones is on the phone. Hey, Barry, can't wait to have you. You just learned the guy's name 8 seconds ago. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. The go-to on every draft call is just, yes, sir. Can't wait. Yes, sir. All right. Can't wait. Yes, sir. Who was the call? Was it a Niners call with John Lynch where one of the players called him coach? Or
yeah, I think
it's loud. But you don't really know who you're talking to.
The one thing in football, a lot of people just call other people coach. It's just like the thing you call other people.
Yeah. On the stream, this is from, where did this go? Jed just had a comment here. Sorry, Jed, I'm looking for it. Basically, what he said was the Colts are using Mariota as leverage with Jimmy.
That's why the Niners just need to sign Mariota.
Right. That's what makes that connection interesting. Trubisky and Big Ben have the same agent, by the way, because I saw somebody write, maybe it was Ben Albright said this deal was basically done at the combine. Tolners is Rep One Sports is Trubisky's agent. So
Tolners have, they got an interesting crew because they got everyone from the Goff to Wentz to Trubisky, but they got like Josh Allen. So it's like you got the good and the bad. Now I bet they would tell you Carson Wentz and Jared Goff have been pretty good to us, right?
Quarterback business is a good business to be in.
I did the math.
Yeah.
If Kirk Cousins is paying Mike McCartney 2% of the 195, because I was like, maybe he doesn't get any percent of the franchise tag, because you're not negotiating anything in the franchise tag, so I assumed nothing. Which again, you probably shouldn't assume that. If he got the 185 or 190, I just added up all the money he's going to make in Minnesota. That would be almost $4 million for. I don't know if Mike gets that directly, the company gets it, but that's pretty good. Right?
I mean, it's not all, yeah.
You want as many Cousins, Josh Allen's, Mahomes. If you get a couple of them, they change your company.
Kirk is the best because he's doing a new contract every year or two,
The cash flow is just whoop, 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 whoop.
It's really incredible. All right, John, let's go to Mike Sando of The Athletic, who wrote this. There are going to be one or two teams that do not have anybody going into camp. If you were San Francisco, you might get a first rounder for Jimmy if you just wait until camp, especially if something happens to someone else, one evaluator said. I'll highlight this bottom portion now. An exec said, quote, the Niners getting a 1 for Jimmy is extremely far-fetched. Clearly, clearing the decks for Trey Lance will be their top priority. But the headline that comes out of that quote is, could the Niners conceivably wait, let Jimmy get healthy, see if somebody else's quarterback gets hurt, and then when a team is in a more desperate situation, get more for Jimmy Garoppolo later? I'd mean holding on to Jimmy Garoppolo now.
I would say under no circumstances can you make this move. It's twofold. One, you need the cash right now. As of recording this, J.C. Jackson might end up with the Chargers. Like it's very aggressive, but people are getting paid left and right, right? You need the capital because starting the new league year Wednesday at whenever it's 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 1 Pacific Standard Time, whatever that is, you have to be like your cap has to be straight. And also, to sign a guy, you have to have the appropriate amount of cap space. Like right now, it's kind of fake because it's not set in stone. But you're going to need, if you want to pay anybody, you need the cap space. So to get rid of Jimmy adds the $27 million. So if you
new league year is 1 p.m. Wednesday.
If you leave him till training camp, you carry that money. So to me, that doesn't logically make any sense. Actually, it's threefold. 2, you would go into training camp like with just an open competition with Trey Lance. That'd be a little weird. Is Jimmy still your starting quarterback?
No, Trey would be no open competition. Jimmy just over there. You wouldn't even practice Jimmy. Jimmy, I don't want you getting hurt.
Well, that would be a bizarre situation. And then 3, you're depending on things that you can't control. Because you'd say best case scenario is once upon a time the Eagles drafted Carson Wentz, but they had Sam Bradford and how he was like, he'll just be the backup. And I think they were telling the truth. And then Teddy Bridgewater in a walkthrough, his knee snapped. And for whatever reason, remember the ambulance was like off-site and it took a minute to get there and it was like a crazy fucking deal. And they were so desperate because they looked at their team being good. They thought they were going to like compete to win 12, 13 games. They traded a 1 for Sam Bradford. So you'd be hoping that like, it's weird. You'd be hoping someone has a devastating injury. Remember Tony Romo's like shattered his back? Now they ended up having Dak Prescott that year, but you'd be rooting for situations like that to happen. And let's face it, like there's no guarantee that just all of a sudden, just pick a team. A guy just shatters an ankle. What if that doesn't happen and you're just stuck and no one needs him?
But here's the other thing. Let's say that right now you could get whatever you could get for Jimmy, a second, a third, a fourth, whatever it is. And you go, what this person says, let's hold out and maybe we can get a 1. Then somebody's quarterback gets hurt. Well, how are you getting a 1 from them in that situation?
Desperation.
Well, do 2 people's quarterbacks get hurt?
Well, why did they trade a 1 for Sam Bradford? Because the Eagles kept telling him he'll just be the starter. So
but that's not happening here. That's not happening.
But you're assuming he's not the starter. Is Kyle just makes him the starter, come into training camp, and Trey's the backup?
Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, I'll call your bluff on that one, Niners. I'm not going to trade you a 1 if I'm the only place you can send Jimmy. You're going to wait longer into the season to see if somebody else's quarterback gets hurt because you don't want my 2 right now? I'm just saying, like you are, like you said, you are, I mean.
You're tempting fate.
You're tempting fate, and it's like, what are you even – it's not a guaranteed upgrade.
Well, I'll tell you in that situation, if it doesn't happen and he just stays, Jimmy Garoppolo ends up the starting quarterback.
100% he does. You're right about that.
So it's the fans' worst nightmare. It's like Jimmy ends up starting, and they just keep him. And Kyle's like, well, we just, value. We got two good
Sudfield's
quarterbacks.
making 2, and you got a $33 million – no, 9 plus 7, a $36 million quarterback room.
Yeah, to me, that's a waste of money. Like, part of the reason the Chargers are unloading the clip right now is because of Herbert, right? They have space because Justin Herbert makes whatever he makes, $5-6 million, and Chase Daniels makes nothing. Like, that's their greatest advantage. If they're able to land Khalil Mack and J.C. Jackson, it's simply because they have cap space because their quarterbacks cost nothing. If Phillip Rivers was still there or Herbert was in his 5th year on his contract extension, it would be a little difficult. Like, you notice who's not just doing left, like who can't just land Khalil Mack and sign J.C. Jackson? The Bills. You know why? Because their quarterback makes a lot of money. It's like, Andy, he's into J.C. Jackson. Like, they had a little moment last year because Mahomes to try to get Trent Williams, but now they're at the point where they don't just have an unlimited cash anymore. Because once you get like a year or 2 into it, that number just starts hitting you. Even, I think Carr and Jimmy are good examples, right? First couple years, you still had some wiggle room with their small cap numbers, but by year 3, 4, it starts. Now it's a smaller number because the cap had gone up, but they're still like their normal number, 25, 27, 22, right? That's just your cap. Like, that's just the number. So you got to take advantage. You have to. And the difference is I'm listing guys that like Herbert we know are good. Trey's a major question mark, but the only way from him not to be a question mark, he needs to play. And then you coach his ass up, get him good, and then utilize his space. But you got to utilize the space before he's taking a snap this season because it's right now. Time is now. And I'm not the biggest, like, you have to splurge in free agency. Like, you have a couple targets. If Gilmore, J.C. Jackson, Bobby Wagner, whoever, and you be aggressive on them. But if you miss, like, I'm cool with, like, I will not talk shit. Like, what have they done? Like, just... You isolate a couple guys, you be aggressive, and if you can't get them, look at the Chiefs. Like, they had a plan last year, Trent Williams, they were all in. They didn't get it, then they just had another plan. Like, I'm not going to freak out if, like, they don't get J.C. Jackson or Gilmore, because it's like, you also don't want to be crazy with your cap space. That's where the Rams are actually kind of smart. I actually like being crazier with my picks. Who gives a fuck about a 3rd-round pick? You get the guy he's already under contract. When you have to sign the contract, you sign these peak values, right? But if I can trade for a guy, like ultimately I bet Tom Telesco's like, we wouldn't get a player as good as Khalil Mack, and he's under contract for the next couple of years. Now, obviously, he has to stay healthy, but like I have a cost-controlled asset, which is more expensive than the guy I would have drafted in the 2nd round, but he's under contract for the next 3 years. Like that. Yeah. That's where I think the Rams, where I'd like to see the Niners go down that road. Now, there has to be players there, but like...
Well, they started to last year with the Trey Lance trade.
Yeah, I'm cooler with doing shit like that.
And they would have done it for Matthew Stafford, and they would have done it for Deshaun Watson. It's the thing. They were going to do those things, right?
But I would, if you would have told me that they made the trade for Khalil Mack, now the Chargers 2nd-round pick's better than their 2nd-round pick, I would have been like, hell yeah. Like, that's what you do.
Yeah.
To me, they should be sniffing around in that market more than like... And that's where I think it gets interesting for Jimmy, right? And I think it gets back to his shoulder, man. I just think teams... It's like, how much are we going to trade for you? Like, this is what we want. Because I think the Niners right now are playing some fucking hardball.
Well, it's a triple whammy, right? It's how much are we going to trade for you? How much are we going to pay you? And how long do we have to wait for you to be healthy? It's 3 things. Unknowns. Or knowns that are too, like, so I got to pay you $27 million, or I got to restructure you for like 2 years and $45 million, which even that. Seriously, which is cheap quarterback money relative for starters, right? 2 years, $45 million. Jimmy might be like, I don't want to do 2 years and 45. I'm making 27, just doing nothing.
I'd be like, Jimmy, I'd probably do 2 years, 45.
Well, but so it's just a lot of moving, a lot of complications there. All right, before we go any further, Buck Mason, baby, you're wearing the hoodie. See, I said this on the podcast. This is
what is that?
They don't make this one anymore. It's like it's a very thin, kind of light. It's not t-shirt material. Well, it is actually. You can get the slub tee, but this is like kind of a stretchy. It's super. I love it. I don't think you can get it anymore. Maybe they'll bring it back. I have 2 of them. Buck Mason long sleeve, and I'm wearing the Buck Mason tee.
Haberman was a legit Buck Mason shopper before they even hopped on board.
I love a good like mid layer. It's not cold, it's not hot, and it just handles everything for you.
Yeah.
And it's not heavy. So you're wearing the hoodie right now? Love that hoodie. We got
buckmason.com/ham. You get a free t-shirt, the hoodie, the sweatpants, the t-shirts are sweet. They have a lot of they have like bomber jackets. They got a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah, whatever you get, it's not like you're not getting some like promo t-shirt. You are getting a high quality. I'm a big fan of the Pima tee. Some people have been asking because they're like, what do we do on the hoodie sizing? I would say go true to size on the hoodie. On the tee, if you get the slub tee, you can probably go true to size. If you get the Pima tee and you got a little bit of a belly, I would size up a little bit. I would go one. I don't know. Do you agree with that? On the Pima tee, maybe if you wear a small, get a medium. If you wear medium, get a large.
Honestly, I just put it on really quick when they sent us a bunch of stuff. I got to put it back on to what tees did what's ones that don't have like the square round but they're kind of circular at the bottom?
Yeah, so you can they have the square bottom ones and they have the rounded bottom ones. What do they call? Which I got a couple of those, but I also have I have the slub curved. So I have a slub straight. I've got the Pima curved. I love them all. I think the Pima is fantastic. I mean, they're both fantastic. The Pima can be like casual and nice. John says true to size on the t-shirts too. So one of my favorite plain white tees.
I'm a big V-neck guy. I might order some V-necks.
Yeah, get some V-necks.
I'm gonna order some V-necks, guy. That's
so whatever you order. You can order a t-shirt, get another free tee. So you can get 2 free tees for the price of one. You can order a hoodie, get a free tee, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, I'm ordering some V-necks.
So go get them. We appreciate you.
Yeah, buckmason.com/ham.
Most hoodies fit size to size. I'm a medium. Yeah. Okay. There you go. There's another 49ers fan 559. What is Buck Mason? Go to the website right now. The link is in the description. We're telling you. Go check it out. They're a sponsor on the podcast now, but also I love their product. Look at that. Look at my flexibility, John. My range of motion. Like a pitcher.
Matt Olson.
I got to think if you play Major League Baseball, Atlanta is one of the top places you want to play.
Isn't he from? I think he's from there.
He's from down there, yeah. So when Buster Posey comes out of retirement, they'll play together. Laken Tomlinson goes to the Jets. 3 years, $40 million, $27 million guaranteed. So more guaranteed at signing, I guess. I don't know if it's 27 guaranteed at signing.
Yeah, I think that's the equivalent of like the Crosby 53.
Yeah. Okay. So 3 years, $40 million, $27 million. Laken Tomlinson is reunited with Mike LaFleur and Robert Saleh. This is what we talked about on the podcast the other day. This was just not going to be a player the Niners could participate with.
No, I mean, this is part of doing business in the NFL, man. Especially, we talked about this yesterday. Guard centers, I'd say D tackles, sometimes linebackers, third wide receivers. The money changes depending on the position, but we saw this happen to Kendrick Bourne. You get credit, whether it's an undrafted free agent and then he signs somewhere else. You get credit for trading a 5th-round pick for a bust, then turning him into a starter on a team that won 4 playoff games with him starting at left guard next to Joe Staley and Trent Williams, and then having him leave at 31 years old. I would say I would have been much more aggressive, and they probably would have been too, extending him like to a big money thing if he was 27 years old. I do think the age impacts, right? He's 31. So, there's a balance of he's a guard. Like he could still have an excellent couple years and be worth every penny, right? I bet the Jets, if he starts every game the next 2 years and just plays at his level, they'll be fine.
And protect Zach Wilson.
Yeah, but I also think that you only have every team in the NFL. I've been reiterating this over and over because Howie said it at the combine, and he's so right. Like every team in the NFL has the same amount of resources. We all have the same amount of picks. We all have the same amount of money. We just get to choose how we utilize it, right? You see the Rams, like they've had the same amount of picks as everyone else. They just use them differently. The Niners last year chose to use 3 first-round picks on Trey Lance. You get to choose, do you want to give Khalil Mack a bunch of money or do you want to give right tackle a bunch of It's just, there's no right or wrong way to do it. Every single year you see teams that make runs that have different amount of, money allocated to a certain position. Sometimes, obviously, the quarterback's going to be the most important. But I had this thought today because I saw some things on Twitter of like, it's risky starting, because I think Aaron Banks, the guy they drafted in the second round, is going to be penciled as a starter going into the season. Now, I bet the way that they verbalize it will be competition, as most teams do, but they're going to want him to start, as they should. He's got to earn it. I mean, you can't just, they're not just going to throw him out there if he sucks, but he's going to get every possibility, I think, to start. You agree with that?
Yes.
And it's like, this is a big risk. And it's like, well, part of drafting athletic quarterbacks, like, I think you'd want a better O-line the last 3 or 4 years in like Seattle, but like, or the Deshaun Watson when he was with, like, is moving around, right? Isn't that a huge added element to Trey? I think it's clear he's not probably as fast as a lot of people would have hoped when they acquired like this running quarterback.
Well, his GPS numbers was what like everyone kept talking about. But most guys, you don't run 40 yards in a straight line all the time.
But I think Deshaun Watson's a good comp. You just need him to run around behind the line of scrimmage. I don't even really want him running that much. Just keep plays alive and then throw deep. Josh Allen style. Now, probably more Mahomes style. I'm not comparing him to Patrick Mahomes. My point is that like Josh is a true runner. Josh plays fast. Trey Lance in the 2 games, and he might get faster with more confidence. Didn't play that fast, but he did move a lot better than Jimmy, right behind the line of scrimmage, just moving around.
Yeah. I think this is part of this Lycan thing. Like if we look back now, we're coming into, believe it or not, but we're coming into John Lynch and Adam Peters and Kyle Shanahan's 6th draft. Okay, 6th draft.
Wow.
In their first draft,
time flies.
Yeah. In their first draft, they got 2 like legitimate starters, George Kittle and DJ Jones, plus Ahkello Witherspoon, who did start for them. In their next draft, they got Mike McGlinchey and Fred Warner, DJ Reed, Marcel Harris, Richie James, Contavious Street, Tarvarius Moore. Like that was a good draft, right? I mean, McGlinchey and Pettis was a complete whiff. McGlinchey has not been what they hoped, but they got Fred Warner, and it was, by draft standards, I think a pretty deep draft for them. In 19, they got Bosa and Debo, plus their starting punter, plus Dre Greenlaw. Okay?
That's good. That's pretty good.
In 20, they got...
Now, the one thing they benefited there, and I've always said this about Bulky in his latter years, this latter year with Harbaugh and those couple years that ultimately got him fired, the Bosa Debo, they drafted fucking really high.
Totally. But so then the next draft, they got Ayuk and Juwan Jennings, who were both major contributors this year, plus Kinlaw, plus McKivitz, who had to play a little, more than a little, and Charlie Warner, who played and gave them has given them 6-round tight end production, right? Like you'll replace him when you can. Then this last year they drafted Trey Lance, Aaron Banks, Trey Sermon, Ambry Thomas, Jalen Moore, Lenore Hufanga, and Mitchell. Right now, you'd say, here are the starters we know from this last draft class. Trey Lance, Elijah Mitchell.
Hufanga played a lot.
He played a lot. Could they go into the year with him as a starting?
I think ideally he's a third safety.
Okay.
That's a good pick, right? In the late rounds.
Ambry, I think, is set up right now to be. I mean, he became a starting corner, so now we're at 3.5 starters.
Improved every game. I give him a lot of credit. He got a lot better, and I was hard on him. He got a lot better.
So, and now Aaron Banks, right? If Aaron Banks is their starting guard,
does Elijah Mitchell cancel out Trey Sermon?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what I'm getting at. Is like we spent a lot of time talking about Trey Sermon, but we're looking at the potential of like 4.5 starters they got out of this last draft. And we haven't even, where that means we're putting Diamador Lenore is not one right now. We're giving a half a starter to Hufanga. And, Jalen Moore played some important snaps for them last year.
To me, if you get quote unquote half starters, meaning that I think ideally they're the third guy at their position, right? If there's 2 tackles, you're the third tackle. If there are 2 safeties, you're the third safety type deal.
Yeah.
You're a half starter in the 6th, 7th, 5th round. I'm totally cool with that, right? Yeah. That means you get guys that can play on game day, that can start. there is tangible pressure. I mean, obviously on Trey, but I would say on Aaron Banks, a second round guard. I mean, he's just got to be just a plug and play starter. I don't need him to be a Pro Bowler. I mean, but he's got to be like, can he just start for the next 3 years at 200, not 200 grand. He probably makes, $1 million. Like, that's a huge, huge addition to your team. Like, that's the swing, right? You let a guy go that's going to make, they would have loved to keep, if all things were equal, they'd be like, can we just keep this guy? But it's just like, there's a money element of like, you can save literally $12 million a year if this guy is just 85% of them. And at one point in time, I was thinking about this today, about him specifically. Part of, and you've always said this about like your head coach, like part of the value in Kyle is like when you do have turnover at quarterback, he really gets to impact that. Or, the Brandon Ayuk, like you get to work through that with the play caller, with Debo and everything. He gets like, obviously his scheme is so connected, and every scheme is, but his specifically because he's so run heavy to the O-line. And Forrester has been his guy now, a Shanahan guy for a decade. Like, that should be a huge advantage to get the best possible outcome out of Aaron Banks. Because they did it with Laken Tomlinson. Now, Tomlinson was, to me, a legitimate, like, first-round guy. I think there were some people that said, I viewed Aaron Banks more as like a late third, early fourth. They drafted him the second. He does come, and listen, once you're in the NFL, where you come from and where you were drafted is kind of irrelevant, but he does come from Notre Dame, who's had, like, McGlinchey is not worth the 9th pick, it turns out, but McGlinchey could just be an 8-9-year starter at right tackle, right? And if those are your misses, you're in good shape. Like, the problem with the Niners early on, right, their misses were like Reuben Foster, and it's just like, you can't have that.
Well, it's also, you miss on a first rounder, did you hit Fred Warner? Ultimately, your hits matter where they come because of the amount of money you allocate, right? And it's just a value game that you're always talking about.
And can your miss function, right? So Trey Sermon, can he become your backup running back behind Elijah and just get 5-6 carries a game? Then you're like, yeah. Ideally, Elijah would have been our 3rd-round pick, but ultimately it doesn't matter. They're both on 4-year contracts, right? But can that guy not make the team? Like, in 2 years, is Trey Sermon like, yeah, he's not even good enough to be the top 3 back? Like, that's the problem. But if I just tell you he's a backup, you're in good shape.
Yeah.
But I don't know he can be a backup. Just like, are you confident that like week 7, assuming health, or week 6 or week 10, like Aaron Banks is a starter?
Well, assuming health, I mean, what are your options right now? Do they end up drafting another guard in the top 3 rounds? Like, maybe they do, but
well, they might, because I mean, Brunskill, they have an old center, an old guard. Like, I think they're going to draft. I'll be very surprised if one of their, because they got 2/3 and a second, like a guy that's viewed as like, this guy can play guard and center. I would expect that pick on the second day of the draft from the 49ers, wouldn't you?
Yes. Yeah. But bottom line, John, ultimately, last year they drafted Aaron Banks with the intention that they would not re-sign Laken Tomlinson. They did not re-sign Laken Tomlinson. So we are moving down the path of what that plan was.
But I think part of it on the Tomlinson, he's probably being let go, whether Aaron Banks on the roster or not. They just would have to be aggressive.
They would have to go find the next guy.
Because it happens. A couple years ago, I think it was last year, actually, because this Chargers' big free agent signing was Corey Linsley, the center from the Green Bay. What did Green Bay do? Drafted a center in the mid-round. He immediately starts. So it's like sometimes you don't always control the path of how you get there. Because they might say, well, listen, we don't know Aaron Banks going to be good or not yet. We might just draft again and just let it compete and just let the cream rise. And hell, maybe they both end up starting. Or maybe Aaron gets beat out. I think you got to draft a guard center type guy probably in the top 70 picks. In that group of your 2/3 and your second round pick.
John, a tradition unlike any other. The first day of NFL free agency, acting like the first reported numbers are the real numbers.
It's crazy, huh?
Greg Rosenthal writes, you don't have to parrot Christian Kirk's agent's talking points. The guarantees will almost surely be 2 years and under $40 million. Now, his contract that everyone has seen has a max value of $84 million with a $20 million signing bonus. So it's 68, maybe over 4 years. And if he were to play the full, 4 years, we're talking about a very high average annual value potentially. Well, we are, regardless of what that ultimate number is. The question is, as Evan says, Christian Kirk got paid, implications for Debo. My first reaction was there are no implications for Debo. Debo's not looking at Christian Kirk's contract. Debo's looking at, Julio Jones's contract and Nook Hopkins' contract and maybe Amari's contract, right? Do you think Christian Kirk signing does anything for Debo's market?
No. Christian Kirk is like a good 3. I mean, maybe a 2, maybe. I don't view him necessarily like that, so I don't think it has any impact. But I also think it's not as easy of a situation. I mean, the names that we use and Debo's going to use, all of them have resumes. Like, ultimately, when Hopkins got his first contract, like, he was good immediately and was sweet for a couple years, right? Devontae has now been punching the clock. I mean, punching the clock for like a half decade, right? I mean, these guys, Julio, when he was fucking Julio Jones. AJ Green, like, came in the league, started kicking ass and taking names. Like, it took Debo a minute to get to. He was good toward the end of his rookie year in the Super Bowl run. Second year did not go well, and last year was incredible. But, like, I don't feel great paying guys off 1 year incredible. Like, it's pretty clear. Bosa got to the NFL, immediately dominated, was going to be even better his second year, tears ACL, comes back, continues to dominate. If Bosa is on the field, he will dominate, right? You can break Bosa off, Joey Bosa contract, add 5%. No issue, right? I don't even think it's much of a negotiation. Like, that's what you want? Cool, let's do it. I think the Debo thing's a little complicated. Because I just see the wide receivers who consist Keenan Allen, they just put in year after year. To me, if Debo had done this back-to-back years, I'd be like, yeah, he kind of got the Niners by the balls.
Yeah, and also
I'm not
if
even
you were
calling him a one-year wonder. Like, I'd expect him
to
keep playing at a high level, but
also if you were
nervous.
first rounder, you might not be in this position right now, right? Because he'd have 2 years left on his contract.
Yeah, I don't think he would.
So that also complicates it. That he plays like a first rounder immediately, and he wasn't.
Well, Bosa's 3 years in, and he's a first rounder.
That's
right?
true. That's true. Debo wasn't that far off from a first rounder, but I think the primary issue is the thing you said, which is we've got 3 years of Debo Samuel, one of them being extremely healthy. The first year, he played most of the season.
Yeah.
But if I were the Niners, Mike, and you told me you get that year out of Debo Samuel again, then you would have no problem giving him 60. Well, I don't know. I shouldn't say no problem. If you told me that's just what you get again, and not even maybe quite that, right, in terms of production, but just you got Debo every week is just a threat and he produces for you, then you would give him $60 million guaranteed.
In a heartbeat.
And the thing is, he just did that 1 year, so he's going to want $60 million guaranteed, which I understand him wanting it. Like, to me, if you're the Niners, why can't you say, we're going to play it out the way that Green Bay just did? And you're not going to want to play on the tag. And the question is, do you, as you pointed out to me before the show, unlike Devontae, Debo doesn't quite have as much money banked as Devontae has banked at this point.
But Devontae was a second round pick, and then he signed and then he signed a very, very team friendly deal.
But he hadn't been as good by year. Was year 3 his breakout year?
Yeah, I think so. So Devontae, first couple years, 38 catches, rough rookie year. Even a second year guy, 50 and 1 touchdown. Third year, 75 catches, 12 touchdowns, and he's never looked back.
And what was that contract?
That was 2016. So did he get paid going into? I'm trying to look when he got extended. When did he? Do you have his contract?
No, but I could find it right here.
Devontae Adams signed a huge not a huge, but going into his 4th year. So at the end of his 4th season in the NFL, before he hit free agency, they extended him December 29th. So they made him earn it a little bit. Could the Niners pull that? Times were a little different, 17 than that feels like now.
So he signed 4 for 58, 30 guaranteed.
Yeah, and he's seen every penny. Right?
Yeah. No, I don't think. Would you sign that contract if you were Debo?
No.
4 for 58 with 30 guaranteed, 24 guaranteed at signing.
So he's basically been making almost 15 a year for the last 4 years, which immediately, like 2 years in, became underpaid because he didn't just maintain his greatness, he got even better. Now, one thing that happened to Devontae is that after 17, so he has his breakout year in his junior season, basically. His senior year, basically his last year on his contract, he goes nuts. 74 catches, 10 touchdowns. So he's at back-to-back 75, 74. He gets paid. He comes back. Well, it's like, is he going to be content? Best year of his career. 111 catches, 13 touchdowns after getting paid. So then he's immediately underpaid, and then he's had 3 straight years of – he had 83 the following year, but he played 12 games, 115, 123, 18 touchdowns, 11 I mean, he's a top 5 non-quarterback in the league probably, right?
Yeah. And look, if the Niners – let's say the Niners did not have a hard line with Debo, get pushed around by Debo's agent. They consummate the deal. They capitulate. And they give Debo $65 million guaranteed, $63 million guaranteed, right? Which is not the way the Niners work. But let's just say that happened. And Debo then came back and had the year he just had. No, it wouldn't. It would be like, okay, whatever. It worked out, right? It's working out, right?
Yes.
The problem is the Niners, there's got to be something in the back of their minds that just goes, how could we run him through that same season again and he doesn't get hurt again? Like just playing him the way they just played him? Forget about the previous 2 seasons. Forget about the previous 2 seasons, John. What if he played the way they just played him?
You know what Devontae Adams doesn't do? Run between the tackles.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like part of what makes him valuable. Internet's being a little funky. Am I gone? Are you gone?
No, good on my end.
Part of what makes him so valuable is that that he's dangerous. That he does things that are dangerous, right?
Yeah. Scary. He's a unique player, and I think it gets very, very complicated because he plays running back. Chargers signed J.C. Jackson.
Let's talk about that. So I've seen, let's see, Rap Sheet just said big money. Have you seen the money somewhere?
$40 million guaranteed.
So it's probably, 5-year, $80 million contract?
Yeah.
Is that what the number is?
Yeah. 5-year, 82.
You know, I was pro J.C. Jackson for the Niners. I still would have been. Like, if you told me the Niners just signed that, I'd go, great, big swing. I heard Barnwell rattle off the list of players the Patriots have left walk, and it's
a lot of Trey Flower, J.C. Jackson types.
You've got Joe Thuney, and the rest is like Kyle Van Noy. I mean, it's especially Bill Coach's defense, right? And it's like, I'm good.
And here's the thing. Belichick has not he doesn't let every player walk. He's had multiple. McCourty got second contract. Richard Seymour got second contract. Dante Hightower got second contract. Like, he does second contracts with players, right? Some guys he does not. Chandler Jones clearly made him uncomfortable. He traded away. I would have said if Chandler Jones never gets in trouble and is on the straight and narrow, he's a second contract guy with Belichick. Like, he was good enough, right? Bill knew that.
Yeah.
But Bill, like, to me, this guy, he goes, I'm not paying you top of the market money when I don't view you as a top of the market player. That was my issue with J.C. Jackson is, like, he's good, but he's not great. And ultimately, Joe Thuney, they got a year of him on the franchise tag. They just chose not to franchise tag him twice.
Yeah.
And they let him walk. So, like, Bill kept him for a year at a pretty high, probably $10 million or whatever. But I'm with you. It's a lot of Trey Flowers. It's a lot of Kyle Van Noy's, and they end up coming back for really cheap. Remember, he got rid of not Landon Collins, but Jamie Collins. Brown signed him to a big deal, and then he got cut, and then, like, Bill brought him back.
Like his coaches.
So I got no issue with that.
Yeah, I'm not. To me, though, from a Niners perspective, I don't think you should be heartbroken about it. At the same time, I think if you're a Charger fan, you're pretty fired up about it. Like, you have Justin Herbert, and you're acting like you have Justin Herbert.
Well, their defense was bad, right? And they just added Khalil Mack and they just added 2 Pro Bowl players. Like, legit Pro Bowl players. Now, I don't love J.C. Jackson at premium prices, but he's an immediate plug-and-play starter. So I think there's 2 ways to look at it. Like,
I also think if you're them, you could argue we're in the AFC West. Josh McDaniels just became the head coach of the Raiders, so they upgraded. Well, although Gruden was a good offensive coach, but anyway, we're in the AFC West. We got Mahomes. Russell Wilson just joined the league. Like, we know we can play in shootouts. We got to win more of these games. We know our guy can go toe to toe with these guys, right? We haven't gone to the playoffs yet with him. We got to go to the playoffs. How do we compete with Hall of Fame quarterbacks that aren't division?
Did I tell you the stat that Schrager, I was texting with him last week, that he said about Tom Telesco, their general manager?
No.
Been there 9 seasons. Been there a long time. He's made the playoffs 1 time.
Good for him. Good for him. We should all be so lucky to have that job security, John.
And I actually defended him. I don't know the guy personally, but like, you know, he's not, let's face it, the franchise hires pretty cheap coaches. Like it's not like, you know, they just told him go out and get the best guy. It's like, well, can we get this guy for $4.5 million a year? I've done that now several times.
Telesco is viewed as a good general manager, right?
Well, that's what Schrager then starts texting back. He's like, well, you know, I think Telesco and Ballard are very similar, widely respected in the industry. They draft well. They have good, talented teams, but ultimately a little different, right? I mean, Ballard's the ghost of Andrew Luck, which not really his fault, and Telesco now, but ultimately, like, you got to win, which kind of sucks. Like, you can be like, I draft all these good players. Like, Ryan Grigson went to the playoffs 3 times. You'd be like, well,
and someone pointed out, like, yeah, with Andrew Luck.
Yeah. Still went.
Well, I know, but because I saw
some guys go to the playoffs, some guys
Silver did a like Grigson resume, Ballard resume, and everyone in the replies was like, "Okay, well, that guy had Andrew Luck."
Yeah,
the other guy
drove him to retirement.
So come on,
drove him to retirement.
Is wins a GM stat? I mean, kind of.
Teddy Bridgewater Dolphins,
as the stream called him, Teddy 2 Yards. Tell me that is not a great nickname.
I like Teddy 2 Yards. Teddy 2 Yards.
How good is that?
That's
one of the better nicknames I've seen in a long time.
I would not feel great about my quarterback room if it was Tua and Teddy 2 Yards, would you?
No, because part of what would make me feel bad about it is Teddy 2 Yards could take Tua's job. So Tua's got to be.
I got Teddy 2 Yards making some starts next year. Don't you?
Absolutely. Because everywhere he goes, he always goes to these spots where it's just like, quarterback's not great. And Teddy seems to run the offense pretty well, know what he's supposed to do. I don't want to keep losing games, developing a quarterback. Let's just move on.
I can see the media flipping on McDaniels when he starts, you know.
McDaniel.
2-7.
Zod says Spanos is actually spending money in free agency right now. Well, yeah, he's pays Stan $1 a year in rent, so he found some extra cash.
He's got some extra money. I wonder if the Chargers feel a little
guilty.
Maybe it's just as simple as like they're just trying to win. It's not as much as like trying to gain market share or whatever.
No, I think it's got to be some of that. Like
everyone blowing the Rams. They have all these sweet players. You know,
they just won the Super Bowl. They got McVay. They got Donald. They got Stafford. They're just. You are a second-class citizen. You're a seventh-class citizen.
They didn't just win the Super Bowl. They won the Super Bowl in Los Angeles. Like, that's pretty cool. I bet it had to say what you want about their market share and their relevance down there. It had to exponentially grow it, right?
Yeah.
Like, there had to be a group of 10 to 12-year-old kids that are like, this is pretty cool.
Here's what I know, John. People call SoFi Stadium the home of the Rams because that's what it is.
Yeah.
They are viewed as tenants.
Did you tell me the Chargers have a separate locker room?
Yeah, remember because we were talking about what was going to happen during the Super Bowl, and somebody said, but they're tenants. They're viewed as vagabonds, interlopers, hangers-on, leeches. I mean, but they got Herbert. So it's not like they're, acting like chasing an unreachable dream. It is a reachable dream for them. They have Justin Herbert.
What would the Eagles give the Chargers for Herbert? They're 3-1s this year, 4-2s, and a 1 next year?
They would trade
the entire draft.
And they'd be right.
Yeah. I mean, what if he was on the open market, they would get the biggest haul in the history of hauls.
Let's say there was no limitation on how many first-round picks you could trade at one given time.
You could just give your first-round pick for the next
If it was like Chargers call the Niners, we want Trey.
I'll give you. We'll give you our first-round pick every year. He's our starting quarterback.
Just like a Herbert tax,
or at least in the 2020s.
that no one ever does that that trade. No
Well,
one's ever
LeBron's
done
been
it.
trying to get them to trade the 2027 first. It's like NBA. It's like,
For Bronny.
remember they wanted to like get rid of Westbrook, but they had to attach the 2027 first. Like, guys, it's 2022. Can you imagine a GM like the chance of me being here? I mean, my kid's 12. He's going to be in college by the time this thing comes. The AFC West is a mother because I would say that the NFC West was better last year. On paper it flipped, right? Because Russell went there. That's a huge loss for the NFC West. Arizona, we'll see if they can just maintain their double-digit win trajectory.
Yeah.
I would say, and the Niners they have a rookie quarterback. I mean, hell, they had to battle their ass off to get to 10 with Jimmy. Now they have a bunch of talent, and the Niners are just a motherfucker to play. And obviously the Rams are really good. But would you agree that it feels like the little shift? I would say the NFC West was better last year. I'd say right now, I texted a buddy on the Chiefs. He's like, 4 playoff teams? That was yesterday. Tongue in cheek, but it kind of
tough because the AFC is just so deep, right? But
yeah, because the AFC North, it feels like the Ravens are going to have a little comeback trail.
But the Steelers could slip back. Steelers made the playoffs this year.
So when the Ravens take the Browns missed the playoffs too. So
And the Bengals.
are the Bengals just a lock to be in the playoffs next year? Like, it's going to be hard.
No. I was watching the mic'd up of the Super Bowl, the whole like hour special NFL Network type deal.
Yeah.
And I did cross my mind, like this was pretty devastating for the Bengals. Like I think the Rams would have been, if the Rams had lost that Super Bowl, I think the Rams would just be right back. It felt pretty devastating for Cincinnati. Now, they do have a quarterback we're all in on, so maybe it just works out okay for them. The Christian Kirk money, John, 4 years, 72, $37 million guaranteed at signing. 2 years, $39 million in quote unquote practical guarantees.
Which isn't nothing.
It's not nothing. His cap hit this year, 7.5. His cap hit next year's 21.5. Year 3, 21.5. I mean, he's probably on the team for 2 years at these numbers.
Yeah, I agree.
Now his $37 million is guaranteed at signing. That's same as Tyler Lockett, $1 million less than Mike Evans got, $3 million less than Mike Williams. Amari Hopkins was 42.5, and Julio was 64. Julio's deal was really outsized compared to everybody else's. What else you see? Besides a large number of people watching on the stream.
You want to do any questions?
Yeah. Let's do hit it. Fire in some questions. Who you like? Free agency. Let's do a little something while we're hanging. I just got 2 more DMs. Garrett. And
one thing when I go to buckmason.com/ham and I try to add it to my cart, maybe you got to sign in first. I don't know. I have to play with that. Go to buckmason.com.
What you're supposed to do is go to buckmason.com/ham.
Yeah.
You're then supposed to pick the t-shirt first. A few people have sent me screenshots of their mailbag. So of their not their mailbag, their checkout bag.
So just select a T. And then just click a random T.
Add to cart.
Yeah, see when I went add to cart.
And now I go and I pick out, let's say I want a different color. Or something else. Let's just pick this blue one here. Add to cart. Check out. And I'm getting I got 1 free tee. You see the free tee?
Oh, fuck yeah.
And then another one right there. Someone said on the stream you have to sign in, but I don't think I'm signed in. And it should tell you a little ham right there.
Where you see that? Oh.
Little promo code.
See, when I click add to cart, nothing happens.
Oh. Try a different browser.
Yeah, Chrome it.
Okay. Well, you're Jeffrey says you have to sign in. Am I signed in? I might be because I ordered Buck Mason stuff anyway, but we'll sign in. I don't think there is a sign in.
Yeah, there is.
Oh, there is. So maybe I am signed in. Maybe I am.
Maybe you could just type in the promo code ham.
I don't know.
You're right. The browser. It's weird. You know, the Chrome is just a superior browser. Just allows you more options.
Patrick on the stream, because there's, always a good time to get aggressive. I thought you guys know football and aren't like the other hacks. How are the Chargers going to stop the run? Please explain. Or are you mindless Herbert hack like the others? Patrick, are you a Raider fan?
Oh, yeah. They get very,
Patrick!
They get very, very angry.
Are you a Raider fan?
They get very, very angry when people say he's good.
Last I checked, Khalil Mack's pretty good against the run.
They'll need to draft a linebacker, and they need to still sign like a defensive tackle. But isn't their coach, right, a defensive guy? Like, it should improve. I'm leery, but you add two really good players to your defense is going to be naturally better. Like, if J.C. Jackson and Khalil Mack are on the field, like, that's a huge addition to just improving, right? Ultimately, like, the Broncos are going to pass. Chiefs are going to pass. Chiefs are going to pass for sure. The Raiders, I don't know. I'm kind of fascinated to see what Josh's whole deal looks like.
The Bucks, Carlton Davis expected to re-sign cornerback with Tampa. The chat is saying. Alston says Chargers can have Kinlaw. He'll stop the run. All right, you find another. Let's see another comment here. Let's see where else we want to go. Patch snob makes sense. Rodney, here's a question: who gets extended first, Carr or Renfro?
You follow Derek on Instagram?
I don't think that I do.
Him and Renfro yesterday were at I think they call that bad boy Death Valley they were walking with their kids, while Derek's kids, I don't know if Renfro's kids. And you know who was showing them around Clemson's campus?
Who?
Dabo. It was Derek's kids, Renfro, Derek, Dabo, and then Dabo's like, bring them over here. They got to run the hill. They got to run the hill. And he brought them to the hill, where they run down.
Yeah.
And he had the kids running down the hill. But it was
Don't they have a lazy river at Clemson?
I might, but it's just, remember Derek said that Dabo, we talked about this, how he texts him, Dabo texts him more than Renfro.
Yeah.
And it makes sense. I mean, very religious guys. I would imagine they're like legitimately friends, wouldn't you?
Dabo and Derek?
Yeah. Football guys, religion, like they've become close.
Derek go out there without Hunter, you think, to visit?
No, but I'm saying that created the relationship, but now like he's, I would imagine, how do you think Dabo views Hunter Renfro? It's like a fifth child, the guy who had a walk-off touchdown for him to win his first national championship. I bet Hunter Renfro has a fucking giant picture in Dabo's house.
I would think Renfro gets extended before Derek. I mean, he's coming into year 4, right?
Cheaper.
I would think the things that tend to happen faster are the ones that are.
But I'd imagine, I bet if we look at Hunter Renfro's production, like his agent would have a pretty good, like, hey guys, I catch a lot of passes, right?
You're saying that he won't be cheap, is the point you're making?
I guess he had a huge breakout year, but he had 103 catches and 9 touchdowns this year.
Yeah.
103 and 9.
Well, I mean, if you like him and you're the Raiders, Josh could argue he's about to have a better year, and he'll only be more expensive after then. Now, you could just tag him and extend him, right?
Yeah, I mean, my point is him, like,
but you don't want to you don't want him to play on the tag.
Is he a $14 million player?
I think if Christian, to me, like Christian Kirk, like he's not taking less than Christian Kirk.
Here, you want to know what I feel very strong? I'd rather have Hunter Renfro than Christian Kirk on my team.
Agreed. So he's 120, 103. Here's the other thing with Hunter. This is kind of crazy. Credit to him and Derek. 103 catches, John, on 128 targets. 81% of his targets were catches. That's insane.
I think if Hunter Renfro had hit the open market, he would have got some serious cash, right? He's a quarterback's best friend. He'd get open with ease in the slot.
They have some leverage. He hasn't made a lot of money. He's coming into his 4th year. They can tag him after that because he's obviously not a first-round pick.
You haven't made a lot of money only works against you if you're desperate to get the money right now. Like, ultimately, if you're Hunter Renfro, like, bro, you could have like a 14-year career. I would not be like jumping the first offer they make you. Because I always hear that. Well, he wasn't a top pick. Well, yeah, but like top picks, I think fall back on because they already have some cash. But it's like their tactic is the right tactic. Just be patient. Ultimately, your leverage is your play, right? It's like, are you just going to immediately, like, you need the new house right now, not in 6 months? Like, just take a deep breath. And listen, I couldn't be an agent because you'd have to just tell your client this all the time. But it does feel like if Hunter Renfro's the type guy, like, hey, man, we got them, they need us as much as we need them.
And you could also say, look, dude, play on the tag. $18 million is what the tag is this year. So next year it'll be whatever, 19 or 20. Right?
I would not do some like 3-year, $40 million deal. That's what I'm saying.
No, I agree. I think I would want Christian Kirk's free agent money. Now you're not going to get that, right? You wouldn't get could he get 20? Could he get 20? What was the number? 26 or 36?
I thought it was 36.
36, yeah. Because could he get 36 million guaranteed? You give him more than Max Crosby?
That seems crazy to me.
Guaranteed at signing. Because what Max's ultimate guarantee was what, like 50?
Yeah, I think Max, if had hit free agency, would have doubled that. Obviously, I mean, you get paid more as a free agent, but
Runaway Turtle, Saquon Barkley's the perfect fit for the Niners' injury-riddled running back room.
Makes like $12 million.
I know. I want no part of that, John.
What is his salary, actually? I guess he's not on the 5th-year option this year.
Well, so what would you have to trade to get him?
7th?
Yeah, but it wouldn't be much.
Wouldn't you want to allocate those resources toward another position?
Yeah. But again, like you start thinking, this is what always happens with running backs. You start thinking, if he's healthy, how good could he be?
Feels like a lot of people are on his.
Is his page going slow right now?
1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, this is it's $7 million.
The Niners don't need to pay $7 million on a running back.
Is he better than Elijah Mitchell? He
No.
wasn't last year.
Well, he's not
Elijah
healthier.
Mitchell makes like $800,000. Would you rather have this guy who makes 9x Elijah Mitchell? I mean, it shows you how fast you fall off a cliff when you're a running back, doesn't it? Like, it's not that much money.
No.
7 in the grand scheme.
But
of
it's
things.
too much money for what you get for him.
Yeah.
And it is actually that much money. $7 million is a lot of money when you have $25 million in space. $7 million is a lot of money to a guy who's not.
Fuck yeah. Well, think about it. And you just go like, how much are we allocating for our offense, right? Trent makes a lot. Kittle makes a lot. We need to pay Debo. Ayuk's a first-round pick. It's not like he's making nothing. McGlinchey's making 11. Trey's making cheap, but he's still making 6, 7. Adds up fast. Be nice if Kinlaw could play.
Somebody say that?
No, I'm just thinking.
Oh, it'd be nice if Kinlaw could play. I got you. Yeah.
There are going to be a lot of OTA Kinlaw articles. Like, he's really dedicated himself. He changed his diet. He's gotten better graces with Kyle and John, and Kasurek, is really, they're doing extras at practice.
But here's the problem with that. Maybe you'll get one of those before camp. The problem is that Kinlaw's problem isn't that when he gets on the field, he's not a productive player. We went to several practices last year. Multiple times he did not practice. Would be standing off on the side. So like those practice stories about how much better shape you're in can only go so far if I go to practice and see you not practice.
I think practice is overrated as long as you play in the games. Like forever, Julio didn't practice, Hopkins didn't practice, but they dominated in games.
Those are veteran players.
Well, I know. But it's like if you told me, Kinlaw struggles at practice, but like 16 games a year, he's like stuffing the run. I'd be like, whatever, I don't complain about it. You got to be leery giving him a lot of money, but like he doesn't play in games, which is a problem. I need you playing in games. It's really where you get judged. Because ultimately, you agree, practice does not matter if you're producing in the games. Because remember Hopkins got traded and Bill O'Brien was like, he never practices on Wednesday. It's like, oh my God, what are we fucking talking about? Which, I get it as a coach, like, it would bug you, but does he know the stuff you're installing on Wednesday and then can do it? Josh Norman.
Do not bring back Josh Norman for any reason whatsoever. Agreed, Eric.
Yeah. Josh Norman was a product of their desperation because of the way they built their team, right? They were relying on a corner who's been injured 700 times, and he got injured in week 1 towards ACL.
And then 2 rookies.
Yeah, 2 rookies.
Who at that point in time were not really ready to play. Ultimately,
2
Ambry
rookies
Thomas
coming off
got
of
himself ready.
COVID and college season that one guy sat out, the other guy barely played. It was like, it was a disaster.
Allen, the Dolphins signed Chase Edmonds to 2 years, $12.6 million. Probably takes them out of the Mostert running. Possible he returns to SF and add more to the running back room.
I mean, Mostert's coming off a devastating knee injury,
Which is why I actually think he makes sense for the Niners. Very cheap, on a very cheap number.
Remember his agent snapped the last time. Pay my guy.
That's right, and they did like to me, maybe he's on the Jets. Would LaFleur want him? I would not be shocked to see him back on the Niners at a very low number.
I could see the Jets being interested. Packers, I could see take for nothing. I see the Rams when they take for nothing.
Yeah, Packers would be a good one. Rams would be a good one. You'll get Jason Verrett this season again and like it. I'm not anti-Jason Verrett. I'm just making Jason Verrett one of your starting corners.
Yeah, same.
There's another comment here. Oh, somebody asked, the Niners have been connected to Valdez-Scantling, John. Let me see if there's the latest on that.
Well, I just think that those type moves are cheap moves, right? This is where people push back. Like, Rams are getting fucking Von Miller and Jalen Ramsey, and we're getting Marquez Valdez-Scantling. I get where people get a little edgy. Like, come on, guys, let's get out that. How heavy is a bat? 34 ounces? Are those the heavy ones? 36 ounces?
Yeah, like a 32, 34.
Can we get out the 34 and take some fucking hacks? I mean, because here's what I know you don't see is like, Sean McVay is interested in Marquez Valdez-Scantling. No, it'll be like, the Rams have brought in Bobby Wagner for a visit. Like, that's what the people want, And you don't win Super Bowls in free agency, but you are competing against a Super Bowl champ who is just at any moment willing to do absolutely anything to get any sweet player.
Chandler Jones versus Darius Smith. Sorry, I just put that. I'm looking for a good tweet that I think you'll like. Chandler Jones. So Darius got cut by the Packers this morning. Was he have a back injury?
Who?
Darius?
Yeah. Remember he missed the majority of the season, and I think came back at the end.
Here's a good tweet from Dieter. Justin Herbert, 22 cap hit, $7 million. Trey Lance, $7 million. 49ers have let Laken Tomlinson walk. Chargers have traded for Khalil Mack, signed J.C. Jackson, re-signed Mike Williams.
My pushback here on Dieter's tweet would be they are another year into it.
The Chargers are another year into it.
Yeah, so their desperation to do it around him is immediate.
Yeah.
You should always have desperation. Like the Rams would be operating. I would take all 3 of the guys the Chargers took over Laken Tomlinson, right? One they re-signed, but I would take all 3 of those guys over him. Also, they cost way more. Mike Williams cost them $40 million. J.C. Jackson, $40 million. And Khalil Mack, I bet the Niners would have been interested in trading for him, but the Chargers, how could they have matched the Chargers' offer, right? Their second-round pick is just better. What could the Niners have done? Offer him tutus? Which is like, gets a little risky. Because you don't have any ones. Part of the Chargers don't, they're also operating a little differently, right? They have all their picks. The Niners are out picks, so you kind of got to be careful with your moves.
They got their quarterback by just sitting where they were and drafting him.
Because they sucked.
It's a big deal. And other people passed on
him. Greer. And them Dolphins.
What? Say what now?
Remember the Dolphins took Tua and Herbert fell right in their lap?
Oh, yeah.
Like Chargers, I mean, let's face it. I've heard from very reliable sources, know a couple people that know Telesco well, like they would have taken Tua. It's easy.
We got our guy.
Yeah, I mean, come on. Ultimately, the Niners had to make a decision, right? We'll find out if it's right or not, but they made a decision. The Chargers didn't. They were going to take whatever quarterback was there.
Since I'm scanning Twitter, how about this tweet I just saw? I was like, what happened? Something happened to somebody? Christian Pache, part of the Matt Olson trade. My heart is broken. I just found out I was traded to the A's.
I think the A's are one of the biggest poverty franchises right now in all of sports economically, the way they operate. Like it's jumped the shark now. Like it's just a complete joke. Like I don't know how.
They haven't even traded Matt Chapman yet.
They're trading all their fucking players.
Which is what they've always done, and it's like at some point.
Just fold the franchise or move.
Problem is too good of a baseball team consistently, right?
But they did have to crazy. They're gonna suck again now.
Any other football we need to hit right now?
Do you think I saw someone's like, Adam Schefter missed the Brady thing? It's like, well, no, Brady did retire. He announced it, and then he, backed out. Not serious. People just making fun of him on the internet.
Yeah, it's like sending out a wedding invitation. You call the wedding off. It's like, they were wrong about that wedding. It's like, no, they were intending to get married, and then they called it off.
Yeah. I give Schefter or Darlington, like, everyone's like, they jumped the gun. No, they said he was going to retire, and then he literally retired.
That's the one thing I wondered what was weird about this Tom return was there was no Darlington tweet. There was no Darlington. Has Darlington tweeted about Tom's return? Darlington is the Tom whisperer. Where was he on this one? Because remember, even that Schefter report, it was with Darlington.
What if he's doing Tampa a huge favor and just letting them resign some guys that would not have resigned and then he's like, hey, I'm out. Would that be the all-time scumbag move or just like business is business?
That'd be a scumbag move, yeah.
Like they're
and then re-retire or go to the Niners?
Yeah, Niners.
Well, it did cross my mind. Did Tom fake retire to try to get Tampa, like hoping Tampa would do something else at quarterback and then make it easy for him to go somewhere else? Like, was he hoping Deshaun, the Bucs would trade for Deshaun on Saturday? And then Tom be like, I'm back, and there's nothing the Bucs can do about it. I'm going to the Niners.
He capitulated pretty fast then if they said no. And just like, I'm back. It's all cool. Were they always on good graces? Which I think they were. I think him and Jason Light are legitimately buddies. Jason Light's a Patriot guy. Jason blows them. Jason at the Combine was the opposite of Aries. Like, we're leaving the lights on. Anything Tom wants, I'll go pick his kids up. Jason Light, I think, is probably the broker. He almost plays the Robert Kraft role. Because ultimately, part of Arians' role is he's just a stubborn old guy. Like, it's not even necessarily it's about Tom. It's more just like, I think he acts like that no matter what. Right? He always has. Been a little defiant.
Yeah.
A little Belichick style. But he's
a little my way or the highway.
But he's more, he swears and he's loud.
I won't compromise what I'm about. It's like, all right, well, Tom wants to change the offense. So can we change the offense, please?
I still hope Tom, that would be pretty cool if he bounces.
But if he doesn't and he stays, major win for, what's his name, his offensive coordinator.
Leftwich.
For Leftwich. Gets to just coach Tom again.
They were kind of screwed. What would they have done? You gonna read,
I don't know.
Florio's Playmakers?
What's that? Would Florio write something?
Yeah, book Playmakers.
What's that about? The underbelly of the NFL.
Yeah, it's like
I'm sure it is.
Florio.
Come on, give us some other. Come on, a few people tweeted at me today, like, "You guys are going too early today. Stuff's gonna happen later." And I said, "No, something happens later. We'll be back. It's the internet. We don't have to drive into work. We'll just hit the button, report for duty again."
There is no commute like the commute when you just get up, grab your coffee, go to your desk. It's such an advantage. You're at a major, major disadvantage versus me when you have to waste hour and a half, 2 hours commuting. How do you compete? You don't. my time to dominate is a pair of slippers and open refrigerator, 7 steps. You're fucked. I lived 5 miles away when I lived in Emeryville to the studios, and it took me 45 minutes.
And you'd show up angry. You'd be like, oh, God.
Now I'm happy. It's just, It is. You're at it. You are fucked. You can't compete. Because I was thinking, like, do the Giants, with baseball coming back, are there going to be more people working? And I would say San Francisco is probably one city where it's still not going to be even close to normal, where they're not going to really, because they used to benefit a lot from the foot traffic, right? People just there, like, hey,
Totally.
we got Giants tickets.
People work.
I don't think it's
going to post work.
I don't think it's going to change that much what it's been the last couple of years.
Yeah, I think it's going to be hard because think about it. When I lived there, you lived there, there was just all the time people I'm going to the Giants game tonight. It's like, this idea that you would only do it on a Saturday. No, it's just Tuesday. Just going to the game. It's cool.
Well, how many people that just worked at random companies in that area? They're like, hey, 4 tickets, anyone wants to go, or we got the suite tonight, or whatever. And it's just the riffraff of just walking to work, swing to Momo's. The dude at Momo's sold them all.
He had Momo's. He had
Pete's and Pedro's.
Did Pete's and Pedro's? I mean, Momo's is still open. I went last year.
Yeah,
Pete's and Pedro's still open.
One of them might have shut down.
Yeah,
if not both of them.
You got to get in stadium gambling.
California's gonna be the last state.
I could see them putting it in the stadiums before they let you do the app.
Like a sports book in the stadium?
Yeah.
Whenever California makes it legal?
Yeah.
But
I think baseball's going to need that. Like, if I were baseball, I'd be like, guys, did you see the new Bills stadium is going to be 6,000 seats smaller than their current? What happened?
Keegan Bradley's hitting the water, but he's not going to win anyway.
6,000 seats smaller, the new Bills stadium.
Smart.
A lot of suites, though. 60 suites. Like, that's where you're.
But isn't he getting it funded by the local government?
He is getting it funded by the local government. Yeah.
Like, they're giving him, like,
I think it's the most money ever.
Like $1.4 billion or something.
Yeah, and someone's like, he's worth $6 million. I'm like, well, if I was worth $6 million, I wouldn't want to spend $1 million on my stadium. It's a large percentage of my net worth, but.
Well, but I never understand, like, it's just basic business. Hey, you're going to buy a house. You don't have to put the down payment. Someone else will. And you just pay off the mortgage. Of course, every fucking human would do that.
Like, wrong. You're like, well, but someone will do it.
Every single human would do it. Every single booger eater on Twitter said they wouldn't or gets mad. And I get being mad, even though it doesn't impact really anybody. Like, you do see it. Like, if you go to Vegas, you do see the charge, on the.
Yeah.
I got weed delivered the other day. And when I say weed, just 3 little things of edibles. I don't smoke. And 3 of them cost $20. So the 3 little, they look like a chew container, and they just have little chewies in them. So like 3 chew level Copenhagen things, and they're usually $20 a pop, so $60. It cost me $90 because California has added multiple weed tax. And the guy comes, I go, this is nuts. And he's like, yeah, they're kind of treating it like cigarettes. I'm like, this is not going to be good for business. I mean, I'm pretty heavily in a weed stock, and it makes me a little nervous. Like, those are the type things that are like, hold people off. Ultimately, if a 12-pack, instead of being $12.99, you had to pay a $10 tax on top of it, like, it would rattle people for a minute.
I'll tell you a new one real quick. I saw today, ordered a hat. It was like free shipping. I was like, MLB.com or Fanatics. Same thing, really. Free shipping. I was like, sweet, free shipping. I've never in my life been charged not for shipping, but for handling. But I got a $1.99 fee for handling. Shipping and handling. They were always one thing. Now they're 2 separate things. The and handling, John, $1.99.
I just, that weed tax made me just wonder if that's going to hurt the industry a little bit in the state of California. Or just people won't even
Or it
notice.
just helps the illegal industry.
Yeah.
Teddy Two Gloves, we talked about that. Brian Allen back. Is that new news or old news? Rams kept their center for $24 million. Mo Alley Cox back. Bobby Wagner, the story was that Russell's trying to recruit him to Denver. Mike Gesicki. God, this being a tight end is just criminal. 1 year, $10.8 million he re-signed. I mean, that's his tag. I think he just signed his tag.
He's had him by the balls, yeah.
The Carlton Davis contract is $30 million guaranteed in Tampa, 3 years and $45 million.
He's coming back?
Yep.
God, Tampa's going to run that shit back.
345, 30. I think I read they had 20 free agents coming into this weekend.
So Tom announced on purpose at the timing, right? Tom did them.
Well, yeah, you're right. If Tom was thinking about coming back, he's like, I can't come back to a team that's a shell of its former self because everyone left.
So do you say that's selfish or that's smart?
Well, it's
selfish incentives to get his team better.
It's smart. I mean, it helps the team. People get paid by the team. So someone just DM me. Do you see the Aaron Wilson? Do you see the Watson news? Aaron Wilson. What did Aaron Wilson say? Deshaun Watson now set to meet with Houston Monday evening. Deshaun's going to meet with the Saints and Panthers. Okay, so you want to do a little thing on this real quick?
No.
I
mean, I don't think it really pops. Be my take.
But I don't even mean that. I just mean to me, it's just
we talked about it. They were meeting in the next 24 hours.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's just as simple as this is what the Niners need to have happen for a Jimmy Garoppolo trade to happen. Is they need Deshaun to meet with the Saints and Panthers quickly, and Deshaun is meeting with the Saints and Panthers quickly Monday night. So he makes his call. One of them knows, and then everyone can move forward. Although the Colts don't. The Niners need this so that they can play the Colts off somebody. They don't know who to use.
I think it's fair to say that he's on one of these two teams by lunch tomorrow. Honestly, it could happen as soon as tonight, if not when we wake up in the morning, right? This is the formality to get him traded.
Yeah, the question is
you're rooting for him to go to the Panthers if you're a Niner fan.
Yeah.
Be interesting. It's going to cost more than Russell Wilson.
So there you go. Maybe that's what the Niners needed that's what we needed, frankly, if I'm being honest, transparent, to move the Jimmy thing along.
Yeah.
So,
I think Jimmy's traded tomorrow after this guy's traded. We might guess.
It doesn't have to be until after he's traded, right? It can just be the Saints know they're out. The Panthers,
I'd say the Saints and the Colts
are working on it.
Both their second round picks are going to be pretty similar, right? They both missed the playoffs. They both went 9-8. They probably pick right next to each other. Would be my educated guess. Same record.
Somebody going to trade for Darnold?
No. He's untradeable.
Seventh?
Untradeable at $15 million. If he was a free agent, what would he get? $2 million?
I mean, Sudfeld got 2, so I mean, maybe he'd get 3 or 4.
I think a guy like Andy or someone would take a shot, see if they could resurrect him. 2 for 5.
Well, to me, a guy like Andy could get him 2 years, 5. You flip him after he plays one good game for you.
Yeah,
in the preseason.
Mahomes pulls a hamstring, he starts a game, and then he's awesome, and you're like, flip his ass.
Plays a half in a blowout. All right, we good there?
Good.
Longer stream than anticipated. If anything breaks, we'll be back. But thanks to you guys for hanging out with us, so we keep it rolling. Anything else to say?
Do it.
Thank you, everybody, for hanging. Hit that like button on your way out the door if you don't mind. Well, don't do it because we asked you. Do it because you like it. Hopefully we give you the content that you deserve. Thanks for hanging, everybody. Be back soon.